Brijesh, how do you expect all these leaders to come together when the battle lines are drawn so sharply?
Well, I think, they will also try to use this opportunity, the platform of an all-party meet, to stress upon the fact that the government has failed and failed miserably. Because, we also have to understand, as Beena Lakshmi ji has been saying, that they are all political parties. If the BJP would have been in opposition, they would have been saying the very same thing. There's nothing different in what the Congress and the other parties are saying, and I think they will try to use this platform to embarrass the government, but they would also like to be seen as someone who is pushing for a constructive push for a dialogue, which would ensure that at least initiation of any kind of process begins. And I think they would also like to stress upon the government that next time when any overtures is being made, the overtures should be made keeping every political party, representative of every political parties inside the group, because they have drawn the blood. Now they would not want to let go of this opportunity to further embarrass the government and also debunk the double engine claim, which they have been doing it for quite a while now.
Mr. Purkais, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, we have just heard the BJP leaders comment. See, this kind of divisive narrative is at the root of this problem. He was saying that only the Meiteis are culturally linked to India, and I don't know on what is the basis of his hypothesis. And then he also referred to Rukmini, where this man has even very poor knowledge of Hinduism. And even the narrative their RSS propagate in Northeast. RSS Rukmini is a character from Mahabharata, which RSS linked with the Arunachali communities, not Manipur. In Manipur, they say that Manipur had a history, and Chitrangada was. Yes. They refer to Chitrangada to draw a link between Meitei civilization, old Meitei civilization, and Hindu civilization. So he has totally, make jumbled up everything, and then to propagate the very divisive narrative. And this is the problem. And if they go to the all-party meeting with this kind of divisive narrative, there will be hardly any solution. When it's time to talk about reconciliation, the language these leaders are using, and not only after this incident, May 3 incident, we have been seeing the divisive narrative being propagated in Manipur by leaders in the people in the high powers in respectable position. This making off the cuff remarks to create a kind of fear psychosis about one community or the other, uh, through the by shooting off the hip, and peddling this narrative of othering. So this is very dangerous trend, and this kind of if they continue to push this kind of narrative, then there will be no solution.
Okay, I think I agree with Mr. Purkais, because one thing is very sure for sure, Kartike, that when everybody sits to find a solution to what is going on in Manipur, they have to be extremely careful with the language which they use, with the imagery they want to project, because when the situation has come to this level, when you've seen that both sides are unwilling to accept certain situations, then the narrative has to be very, very clear, the language has to be very careful, and the imagery has to also be very, very careful, because you cannot, as a central government or as a national party, nobody can be seen taking side of one ethnicity against another, because force may bring temporary peace, but it will never bring a lasting peace. And I think that is something which the governments and the political parties have to be very careful. You can play politics all your life, and you can gain or reap rich political dividends where you want, but the situation has come to such inflammable point that that any play of words or any any imaginary push to a situation will further exacerbate the situation rather than bringing it to normalcy. You cannot seem to other the cookies, but you also can't seem to be pushing out Maitis just because they are in majority. So I think a very careful, very deft handling it requires, and it requires more mature minds to be put on this rather than these loose statements just because you want to get even with Congress or just because you want to get even with the BJP. I think all political parties need to exercise this, because what we are talking about is the lives of people. We are not maximum restraint, because we are not talking about some cattle or something which doesn't affect us. If we are talking about lives of human beings, and they have already seen in the last 50 days perhaps the one of the worst times in the last 1 decade.
Dr. Haukip, your response before I go to Beena Lakshmi ji?
Yes, to respond to the question of Madam Beena Lakshmi, nation states today are generally termed as surveillance states. They have all the capacity to monitor everyone, everywhere. So the center and the state government are very much aware of the situation prevailing on 3rd May, and even the prolongation of this conflict is also a part of their own agenda, if I could say, because if they could if they wanted to stop, they could have stopped within a few days. And the kind of structural violence that we have been witnessing is very much evident on the so-called Khamenlog incident also. Before any kind of incident happening, you could see the mobile towers not functioning. People could not communicate one another before any kind of incidents, like in the Khamenlog area. Or you can see right now, for the last almost 2 months, even my area, my village has been cut off from electricity. Just imagine, uh, in Churachandpur, there is lack of supply of electricity. People do have 2 hours of electricity, then they charge their mobile phones and others, and they remain dark for many hours. So in many parts, peripheral areas of Imphal, people are out of power, out of electricity for the last almost 2 months. Mobile towers are not functioning, and during such emergency powers, or these mobile towers are jammed, and this kind of structural kind of violence, or inequality is happening in Manipur. So this has to be addressed, and this kind of with this kind of inequality, I think the violence will perpetuate, and people will not come out of the kind of feelings that they have right now, and trust can't be built. So we have to look into all these issues collectively, and how that will come. I think it will come from the top. This kind of
Okay.
change will happen from the top, and which only means that the central government needs to
Okay.
take charge of Manipur for a while, put them under suspended animation,
Okay.
and for 2 3 months, trust has to be built, and we look into the kind of political
Okay.
demands that has been in place for
Okay.
the last many
Okay.
years.
Okay. Beena Lakshmi ji?
Yes,
The-
absolutely. In the end, as I mentioned, when these conflicts are deliberately engineered, it is affecting lives, not only lives, but there are certain what Michael Foucault would call, the technology of killing. And I have said this, a technology, of how these conflicts are engineered. I think as scholars ourselves, we're acutely watching. I have been conducting research, writing, and analysis since the last 20 years. So we are aware of what's happening. And as panelists has also said, the government and the policymakers do not seem to listen to what we are saying. How many times in India International Center, how many times we have done briefings after briefings to tell that Manipur and the northeast of India, they must remove the martial law, they must ensure proper democracy, they should take out the criminal elements. For last 15 years, we were really trying to, but no one listens. So that is one of the reasons it's high time that India wakes up. Not just the people of Manipur, but India as a nation must wake up to what is happening in the Northeast, number one. Number two, I feel really, really, what can I say? How
know,
can you?
can I
How
say
can the
something?
political parties, without knowing the proper history of Manipur, of the people of Manipur, go about either taking sides or deciding? It cannot happen. That's for the last, again, decade, we have asked the government of India to include a history of people of Northeast of India in their syllabus. They have not even included a chapter, forget a chapter, not even a couple of paragraphs in the curriculum of this world's largest democracy. As a result, any decision that you take to decide anything, you will not, there's an English saying, a little knowledge is dangerous. This danger is burning Manipur and it'll burn the country.